Fantastic. And we are now officially live. So I'm going to just kick us off quickly with sharing my screen to just set up a quick welcome for us tonight. So with that being said, here we go. I am sharing this quick slide with everybody. So first off, welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for all Pennsylvania students, sponsored by the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling and StripScan. Thanks for joining. A few quick housekeeping announcements before we get started. Please feel free to use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and your microphone are off, so our panelists cannot see or hear you. And then just a quick plug. This is one of our many different sessions happening, and we would really like to encourage you to check out the full schedule at pacac.org. And this presentation is being recorded, and it will be available within about a week at that same website, pacac.org. And with that, it is my pleasure to go ahead and turn it over to our presenters tonight.
Awesome, thank you so much. So hello everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight on this wonderful spooky evening. I don't know about you, but it's been pretty foggy and very spooky seasoned here at Westminster on our McDaniel campus. So thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Zachary Brown. I am one of the admissions counselors here at McDaniel College. I am also an alum of McDaniel. I've got my lovely degree hanging in the back there. We'll get into some details about my experience along the way alongside my colleague here, Tariq. Tariq Evans is one of our other admissions counselors here who is joining us tonight to help answer questions and be here with you. So we welcome you all together. I do want to go ahead and get started right up off the top and talk about our admissions process here and kind of get into the nitty-gritty details first so that we have plenty of time to talk about fun stuff and then we can answer your questions, of course. So as far as the application process goes for us, I always like to highlight the two things that are going to be the most important. On the one hand, you have the actual application, and then on the other, you have your transcripts, so your grades and things like that. Now, within each of these, there are some further details to highlight, some nuances. So for the application itself, I really want to stress the point that it's helpful to include any kind of extracurricular activities that you have going on in your high school career, whether that's in the school, outside of the school, whatever it is that you do that is part of your community engagement, we want to hear about it. So if you have a club or organization that you're a part of, if you have a faith-based organization, perhaps outside of school that you're a part of, that you're active within, if you babysit your younger siblings because mom and dad are off at work in the evening, any of these things are going to be really important for us to know. We at McDaniel really like to get to know our students because that's how we can help you get to know us. I break down the title of admissions counselor. We're literally counseling you through the admissions process. That's what our job title is meant to do, right? So the best way I can do that is to get to know you so that I can introduce you to the people on our campus who are doing all of these similar things. And so that way you have all of the information that you could ever need in order to make an informed decision about whether or not McDaniel will be the right fit for you going forward. Because at the end of the day, on May 1st, where that national deposit deadline hits, you are the one really making that decision for yourself. So keep that in mind as you're going through the process, but definitely include all of those things with your application. The other thing for that application that is important, though, is going to be your essay. This is your chance to use your voice to tell us about who you are. We look at the essay not only from a technical writing perspective, but also a narrative perspective, and really ask our students to share with us who they are, what their story is, so that we can further get to know you and further understand who you are as a fully fledged person. We do what's called a holistic review. So we're never looking at one individual piece of your application by itself or all alone. We look at all of these different aspects in context together, and that's such an important way that we are able to really connect with our students. So as far as those things go, technical writing things, make sure that you are proofreading. A couple of commas out of place are not going to be the end of the world. But if you have 17 commas out of place, you don't capitalize your I's and you address us as a different institution, I might have some questions for you. That might just lead to us asking for another writing sample. It's not necessarily the end of the world, but having that attention to detail is really helpful. But again, we are also looking at the way that you craft your narrative, the way that you share your story with us. So that's all part of that process. On the application, or rather on the transcript side of the application materials, we are looking at things like your GPA and your class rank if your school does indeed rank students, but that's not the only thing that we're looking for on that transcript. We also take into account things like your academic rigor and academic progression throughout high school. So have you taken honors, AP, IB, community college classes, whatever that looks like for what your school offers? Have you been doing well in those classes? I want to see students that are engaging more deeply in their academic career throughout high school, but it's not necessarily going to look the same across the board for each student. A student who is taking 7 AP classes and getting, maybe C's and D's in all of them, that's a little worrisome to me versus someone who's taking 2 or 3 AP classes consistently and doing really well in them. We want to see that upward trend and growth to show that you are really engaging with the material and learning that base of understanding, but then also, expanding yourself and expanding the kind of things that you are engaging with. So make sure that you're keeping those kind of things in mind. And as far as test scores go, if you're worried about the test scores, then you can take a deep breath. So here at McDaniel, we are actually completely test optional. We do not believe that any one individual test or an amalgam of any 3 individual tests are a good indicator of your potential success. So if you have anxieties about the test scores and SAT, ACT, and especially this year when everything is going kind of mad with cancellations of tests and things, like Elsa, you can just let it go and it'll be all good. So, and we have been test optional for a few years now. I know a lot of schools are having to adjust to this new landscape because of the pandemic going on. And we really have been reviewing students this way for years. And so we're really confident in our ability to review students and to judge students based on those other application materials that I mentioned. Some other details to consider though, things like letters of recommendation, not required, but you certainly can submit them if you'd like. We recommend usually 2 is a good place to be. Any more than that, and it can get a little bit redundant depending on who you're asking, but if you have 3 or even 4 distinct voices that can share with us a distinct idea of who you are as a person or as a team member or as a student, then we'd love to hear that voice and we'd love to hear that explanation. Beyond that, other kind of resumes, other interviews and things, nothing else is really required. If you have a resume that you'd like to submit instead of writing everything out, then great, you can certainly do that. But the pieces that I've mentioned already are the application pieces that are necessary to move forward with the application itself. We do review every single student for merit-based scholarship, so that's something that's automatic upon your application, unless you've indicated our legacy scholarship as an interest. We do have a legacy scholarship available for any student that has a parent or grandparent who is an alum of McDaniel. We have one for anyone who has a parent who is military or a veteran, and then we have another legacy scholarship for anyone who has a parent that is an educator in a K-12 or community college system and has been in that system for at least 4 years of full-time service. So those legacy scholarships are valued at $25,000 per year for the 4 years that you would attend undergraduate with us. And then our merit scholarships range in numerical value from $15,000 up to about $28,000. And then there are some additional scholarship availabilities beyond that for honors program potential students, which are typically in the top 10th percentile of our applicant pool. Now, as far as deadlines are concerned, we have 3 major deadline types. Early decision, which is the contractually binding deadline. That means that if you apply early decision, you're saying, I am 100% ready to commit to McDaniel and I'm not looking to go anywhere else. Few students will use that every year. So if that doesn't sound like you, that's totally fine. Don't panic. Many students will also use our early action deadlines who want to get an early jump start to their application timeline, but aren't ready to make that full commitment. The early decision deadline, though, that's going to be November 1st. And then we have one in the spring semester for us on January 15th. And then we also have the early action, like I mentioned, which are non-binding, but they are earlier in the year. So you can go into the holiday season already knowing if you've been admitted. Those are going to be November 15th and December 15th. So keep those in mind. And then our last major deadline is going to be February 1st. Applying after that, you still can, but it does compress the timeline that you have left to get to that May 1st deposit deadline when you have to make that final decision. So we always encourage students to apply no later than that regular decision February 1st deadline. And then if you're interested in financial aid, it's something that's pretty, prevalent here on campus. About 90% of our students are receiving some kind of financial aid, and our average financial aid package is just under about $40,000 against our overall average cost, which is for last year was just under $60,000. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about the kind of financial aid availability here on campus. All of that financial aid review is done through the FAFSA. We do not use the CSS profile or any other, financial documents. It's just the FAFSA. So make sure that you are submitting that and including McDaniel's school code, which you can find on our website. I don't know it off the top of my head, unfortunately, I'm sorry. But we'll make sure that you get that information, of course, if you have further questions. So that is pretty much what I have as far as the nitty-gritty details go. I want to pivot. The good old friends of mine who are big Friends fans will scream and send me gifs of, Ross with the couch saying, pivot, over to some more fun stuff about McDaniel and kind of what we're all about as an academic institution. So to get started on that, we are a liberal arts private college. And so what that really means for us is that we want our students to have a really strong understanding and a strong background across a variety of different disciplines. We want to grow different critical thinking skills in our students so that you really have the backbone to do any different type of thinking, regardless of what individual major you end up selecting or what individual area of study or area of expertise that you go into. We will eventually have students that pick up an individual major, so you certainly will want to have that in mind, but we don't require anyone to declare that until the end of their sophomore year. We have plenty of time for you to discover what that's going to be, and part of that discovery happens through our core curriculum called the McDaniel Plan. This is our approach to that liberal arts education that gets you the skills across these different disciplines, but we do it in a way that's a lot more accessible and a lot more flexible than you might expect if you've seen some other institutions. In many cases, liberal arts colleges will have a core curriculum where on day one, you walk in and a first-year student is handed a list of courses and you take this English class and this math class and this history class and this science class, and so on and so forth. But every single student takes the exact same one for each of those different requirements. And we've kind of done away with that notion. So instead of that, what we do is we have categories: quantitative reasoning, social, cultural, historical understanding, creative expression, textual analysis, etc. And within each of these subheadings, you have upwards of 30 different course opportunities every single semester to choose from. So our students are the ones who actually get to design their curriculum in a lot of ways, because you're the one picking out the courses that you get to take and picking out the courses that you want to be in so that you're energized to get out of bed in the morning to go to class, because you're the one who picked that class. It's not just us telling you that you have to take it. When I was an undergraduate student here, was a really good example of someone who took advantage of this flexibility. Coming out of high school, math and I were not friends. I was terrified that when I got to college, I was going to have to take some advanced calculus class. And that ultimately, for me, that was going to tank my GPA for that semester. It was going to ruin my experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of dramatic hand flailing back in the day for my first year here at McDaniel when I was worried about all of these things before I realized that, well, actually, I could take a course in elementary logic out of the philosophy department, and that counted for quantitative reasoning, because that course still taught me quantitative reasoning and that critical thinking skill that, with math, it's the skill that lives behind mathematics, but you can approach it in a different way. And by giving me the opportunity to do that, I'm actually a much better mathematician now, because I was able to learn that quantitative reasoning skill and connect with it in a way that made the most sense for me at that point in time. The same thing goes for things like creative expression. I was a theater student here at McDaniel as well. And so my first semester, I was done with my creative expression requirement after taking an acting class. But not every student is going to want to perform a monologue for their homework, and we understand that. So there's all sorts of other things, other courses that are less performative for you to explore that creative side of your brain. But ultimately, we are still guaranteeing that you're getting all of these skills that are going to make you successful in the long run. Within that program, though, the McDaniel Plan, there are some staples that you'll always run into that connect back to the major that you're picking or the major that you've studied. So things like junior writing experience and senior capstone. The junior writing experience is a great piece because at your junior year, you've officially had to declare a major at this point. So we want to bring your writing level and your writing expertise from that collegiate level up to the expert level within your particular discipline. It's going to look different if you're a biology major versus a psychology major versus an English major, because all of those fields write differently and even have different, platforms or citation methods that they use. So we want to make sure that you're actually honing in on the skills that you need in your particular area. We also have the senior capstone, which is a fully fledged semester-long project that is going to be a pretty intensive research assignment that you'll do over the course of a full semester, working closely with a professor to make sure that you have all of the expertise that you need and culminating all of these other skills that you've had into this one project that you can present to your graduate schools or present to your job interviews and be ready as soon as you finish up with that project at the end of the day, the end of your semester. So setting you up for success through these academic programs is at the core of what we do at McDaniel. Our average class sizes are only about 17 students. So you're going to have the attention of your professors. They're going to know your name. They're going to know what you do outside of class as well and kind of be there as mentors for you, more than just lecturers or more than just people who are giving you the information. And having that connection is so important to make sure that you're moving through the 4 years of your experience here at McDaniel fluidly. Beyond just what you do in the classroom, though, we do also have focuses in academics on experiential learning and giving you real world applications for all of these skills that you're growing and learning in the McDaniel Plan courses. These are what's called our McDaniel Commitment. We actually guarantee that every single McDaniel student will have at least 2 experiential learning opportunities over the course of their 4 years at McDaniel. This could be something like a community service outreach or community service endeavor of some kind that's extended over a long period of time, not just like one volunteer event. It could be study abroad experiences, which are very popular through our campus. We actually have a sister campus in Budapest, Hungary over in Europe. So a really unique way to explore different areas once we return to a post-pandemic landscape, hopefully sooner rather than later. But ultimately, having that global perspective, wherever you end up doing your study abroad is going to be important. I did a study abroad course that was part of our January term. So in between the fall and spring semesters, you have Jan term, as we call it, and it's the last 3 weeks in January. I actually did one of these where I went to England and Romania and Istanbul, Turkey for a week in each location studying Dracula. I got to read Dracula, the book by Bram Stoker, while standing in the ruins of Vlad the Impaler's castle, who, was the inspiration for the book itself. And that was such a mind-blowing experience because I was connecting with this history in so many different ways and also connecting with the culture that I was, witnessing that day that I was there and experiencing these different things across the board, growing that global perspective and global citizenship and connecting that back to the academic piece that I was studying at the time. Another option for experiential learning could be an internship, something a bit more traditional in the sense of a career building expertise or career building experience. Or maybe it's student faculty research that you do on campus here with our professors beyond what you're doing in your classroom. I know a number of people that have even been published alongside of our professors here at McDaniel before they've even graduated undergrad, which is a huge accomplishment in the academic landscape, especially if you're looking to go to graduate school. So all of these different aspects are available to our students through this McDaniel Commitment. And we actually start, introducing you to these kind of resources as early as the summer before your freshman year. We have a pre-orientation program called McDaniel Local that brings students back to campus in groups of about 60. So you don't have to worry about the full kind of incoming class. You get to have a smaller group environment to really learn from each other with. And part of this experience is acclimating yourself to campus and familiarizing yourself so that when you do officially move in August, you don't have to ask where the dining hall is or where the library is or where's the best place to get a cup of coffee downtown in Westminster here. But what it really does also is it introduces you to some of the people that you'll start to be working with over the course of your next 4 years. You'll get to meet people from the Center for Experience and Opportunity. You'll get to meet people from our first year experience team where they're really there to support you. Folks who run all of these different programs or direct all of these different programs I've mentioned for these experiential learning opportunities. You're meeting and you're interacting with them before you've even started your classes. And so having these resources in front of you is such a big important part of how we address moving our students through the process and getting them all of the expertise that they need so that they can go out of their way and can actually accomplish all of these steps. It's really important for us to build on students' first year experiences in particular, because we know that students who have a strong first year have a strong remaining 3 years of their undergraduate. So really building these kind of expertises and building these experiences out in the summer before your first year, and then leading into the January term of your first year with our My Design course are so important. Now for that My Design class, it's really cool actually, and I wish that I had had My Design when I was a student here. It hadn't existed at that time, but basically students come back in that first January term and you are brought into the classroom and it's reflective. So you come in and you say, okay, one semester down, how did we do? How was I successful, or were there areas of opportunity that I've identified? How do you go about, working with that and kind of working through that? If it were me, I would have come in and said, okay, well, I thought that I was going to major in theater and minor in psychology. And I thought that this was going to be the way that I would go through, and I was going to get this, plan. I was going to go off and do theater full time and whatnot. And then I got partway through the first semester and said, I don't know that I like doing theater all the time. And I went and took an intro to psychology class, and I quickly realized that psychology was not for me. And then I took 2 years to kind of figure out what I really wanted to do. Well, now our students are actually given the resources and given the opportunity to reflect on these kind of questions within that first year, so that you have the experiences that you need to move forward, and you have the kind of space to give yourself a breath to really assess where you are within that first semester. And you don't have to have anything figured out by any means, but by having this class and by introducing you to these other resources, you're able to better assess what it is that is the next best step, there. So, having this resource directly in front of you, really our students are put in a position where they're getting internships earlier in their careers. They're planning their study abroad experiences with more intention and with more agency than we've ever seen before. And more of our students now are accomplishing far more than those 2 experiential learning opportunities that we guarantee for our students. So really remember that these are the kind of pieces that are going to set you apart from other institutions and other students coming out of these institutions that may not have this kind of developed, robust nature within their program. We recognize that every single job opportunity is asking for 3 years of experience in the field. We know that graduate schools are becoming more and more competitive. And so we want to set our students apart from everyone else. And so this is why we have such a focus on both the academic side of things in the classroom and the research that you're able to do there, and the things that you do outside of the classroom to really bring these experiences together. Now, I would be remiss if I weren't to also talk about our campus culture here at McDaniel. We are a very residential campus, and so we hope our students find themselves at home here on the Hill, our affectionate name for our campus that has quite a number of stairs. But ultimately, we have about 1,800 undergraduate students. We have about 90 different clubs and organizations for those students that range in any number of different, pathways or avenues for success. So things like Greek life on campus for students that are looking for that kind of social experience. We have ethnic and cultural organizations like the Black Student Union, Africa's Legacy, Hispanic Latinx Alliance. We have a Gender Sexuality Alliance on campus. We also have faith-based organizations too, so things like the Jewish Student Union or the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, for example. And then there are, of course, intramural sports. There's 4 major theater productions every year. There's 24 collegiate sports teams. And at the end of all of that, you also have clubs that are just based on hobbies, like Sewing Club or the Dungeons and Dragons Club for all of my fellow nerds out there. So really, at the end of the day, you're always going to be able to find some kind of community to be a part of here at McDaniel. That's something that's so true to our kind of Green Terror, which is our mascot's experience. And we're the kind of campus where those communities are able to blend. Theater kids like me still go tailgate the football games, and football players still come to the theater shows. And having that blend of different perspectives is so important, because it just goes back to that notion of the liberal arts and growing your experiences across a variety of different pathways and avenues to understand the world around us. And so being able to find these communities is really imperative to the growth that you do personally beyond what you do academically through your collegiate experience. I remember in my freshman year, I was a new student, obviously, and I ended up sitting next to a junior in one of my English classes. She's now one of my best friends, Sarah, but at the time, she had been getting started on her English major a little bit later. I was getting started on my English major a little bit early. So we landed in this middle ground kind of prerequisite course together. And she one day was just like, hey, Zach, like, I think you'd be really good at this journalism thing that I'm doing. You should come to the McDaniel Free Press meeting, which is our newspaper on campus. And me being a new first year student who had never thought about doing journalism, I was like, I don't know, maybe not for me, thanks. But at the end of the next couple of weeks, after I had been complaining about not finding a group of friends quite yet, and Sarah was like, well, Zach, I invited you to come to this thing. You should try it out. I went, and then 2 years later, I was one of the editors of the newspaper. And if I hadn't had Sarah sitting in that class next to me saying, hey, Zach, I think you'd be good at this. You should go try it. I never would have found that experience. And building those kind of interpersonal experiences and having those kind of interpersonal avenues to pursue are honestly just as important in a lot of ways that to the kind of academic pieces that you do in your classes. In order to really grow and have the perspective of a fully, realized collegiate experience, you have to be able to grow interpersonally and within groups and within your kind of home life just as much as you grow as a scholar. And so having the ability on our campus to blend those things and to find a really well-balanced experience is such an important part of the process that we really encourage for our students. I always like to, when I have students here on campus visiting us, when our student ambassadors introduce themselves, I always feel like it can take almost as long as this presentation does for them to introduce all of the things that they do on our campus, because everyone is so involved. And they're doing multiple programs of study, they're doing multiple different club organizations, and all of these things come together to really culminate in a fully functioning, fully realized growth of each and every student, so that every one of them is the best possible student and the best possible person that they could be following our McDaniel experience and following what you do in and outside of the classroom here on the Hill. So I just want to kind of hit that home. My colleague Katie, another one of our admissions counselors, always says, when you pick McDaniel, McDaniel picks you back. And you get enveloped into the community, kind of whether you like it or not, but it's always in the most encouraging way. And that's what I would encourage you all to do, is hopefully as we get to know each other and as you get to know McDaniel, you'll be looking to get involved and looking to become part of our Green Terror community here, because we want to pick you back. So I will leave with that. I will turn to some questions here and make sure that we get Tariq's experiences as well here on campus. So certainly we'll answer some of those and we'll move forward. But again, thank you all for joining us tonight. So I want to turn to some questions here now, Tariq. Since we haven't really been fully introduced to you just yet, would you like to kind of come on and just explain a little bit about some of your favorite undergraduate experience that you had when you were a student here?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Zach said, my name is Tariq Evans. I am one of the newer admissions counselors here at McDaniel. I graduated in 2018. I studied English and theater, so I am a theater nerd like Zach, and an English nerd as well. I actually was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. My first time to Maryland was to come to McDaniel College. Fun enough, my first McDaniel experience was driving 11 hours for freshman orientation and telling my mom that if I don't like it, I'm gonna come back home. And now I'm still at the Hill, as Zach attested to. When you pick McDaniel, McDaniel picks you back. And so that's my testimony. A lot of things that I got involved with, I was in honors organizations. I was part of the theater a lot. What else did I do? I also was a student ambassador. So I was on campus giving tours. So now that I'm an admissions counselor, it's cool to see the other side of things. Let's see. I was a residential assistant, so I was able to get involved in that. President of some organizations like Allies. I was involved in Black Student Union, speech and debate. So a lot of things to get involved with at McDaniel. And what's really cool is that it's not, you have to just pick one thing, even in the academic aspect. You can pick multiple things, learn, and that's what I love about the McDaniel plan and the liberal arts education and philosophy that we have here at McDaniel, because it's so integrated. I have friends that were involved in Greek life, and Greek life isn't a separate entity, it's integrated within the campus. And it's really nice to feel that community, that campus feel. I didn't get to go home for things like Thanksgiving because I lived so far away, and I had professors invite me to their house for Thanksgiving with their family. We had Friendsgiving on campus for all the students who couldn't go home. So it's nice to know that even on an academic aspect or a personal aspect, all of those are considered. It's not just all academics. It's not all partying, all, activities and things like that. It's a really nice blend and a really nice mix of everything. And that's why I just fell in love with McDaniel.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, Tariq.
Yeah.
Another question I'm seeing here is, what were some of your undergraduate kind of favorite moments of your undergraduate career, considering you're both, alums?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? I'll start, I guess.
Yeah.
So for me, some of my favorite moments of my undergrad really were the connections I was able to build with professors. I was very much like an academic kid. I was always kind of like the teacher's pet kid in high school. And I really was able to grow into someone who really appreciated scholarship. I was able to present at 2 undergraduate conferences during my undergrad program, both in medieval literature. And so that was a really cool part of the process for me. I actually did a student design major in medieval studies, and I can get into that if you're interested. But essentially, I was able to find professors who encouraged me along the way, not just to do well in their classes, but to do well, period. And I have, to this day, professors that I can even now walk into their office and just say, hey, Kate, like, I'm having a bad day. Can we talk? And having those kind of mentorship relationships that go beyond just going to class, leaving class, going to class again the next day, leaving class again the next day. I really was looking for the kind of community where my professors would know who I am and be able to kind of help me develop myself, not just, by reading their books or by reading whatever, but by really, being a role model for me through my undergraduate career. And that's certainly the case. And that certainly has continued even to this day. That was probably a super nerdy example of something that I really loved about McDaniel. But Tariq, how about you? What's some of your favorite undergrad moments?
Yeah, I have a lot, but I'm gonna not give all of them. I know one of my favorite moments. It's strange enough, I actually considered leaving McDaniel only because I'm a dancer and I couldn't dance because there wasn't a dance major. And I told my professors, like, I love it here, but I really want to dance. And so there were dancers on campuses. Like, we have a dance club that you can get involved in. There was a dance teacher that invited me to be her nutcracker in her show off campus. So it was like, we want you here. We're going to find a way to keep you here. And that just made me feel so welcomed, and it was so inviting. It's not like, oh, well, you shouldn't have come here if you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, you want to do this, let's make it happen. One other thing that I'm proud of McDaniel for is their commitment to diversity. And it's not just a commitment, but it's a consistency as well. So I'll admit, when I went to McDaniel, there weren't a lot of students that looked like me, that had my ideals, that were from where I was from. So I felt sort of, I was like, I don't know if I fit here, for like a day. And then bam, all of these places for me to go and all of these organizations to be a part of. It's like, you do belong here. So it's really that sense of belonging. This was overall experience at McDaniel.
Yeah, awesome. So now a little bit of a flip side. I'm seeing another question here related, but what are some things that are not your favorite thing about McDaniel? Anything that stands out? I actually really, it's hard for me to answer this question sometimes because I absolutely loved my undergraduate experience here. It was something that was really kind of core to who I am as a person. Like I mean, I came back to work here, right? So I really did love the place, I promise. One thing that isn't my favorite, I guess, is we are in a more suburban area, leaning rural. So I grew up right outside of Baltimore, Maryland. So I'm definitely more used to an urban area and kind of having that center of town, so to speak, and the bustliness of that. And here at Westminster, it's definitely not quite bustling. If you go one direction, you're in a cornfield, but in the other direction, you still have a lot of the suburban amenities that you would kind of be used to in a more urban area. Things like Target, Chipotle, Starbucks, Taco Bell, McDonald's. We have a movie theater in town. And those are the kind of main strip of kind of on the main road out on the far side along campus. But if you go down Main Street, Westminster, which you can walk directly from campus, that area is so much more like mom and pop shop and kind of more college town feeling. And so, you can go and walk to Jeannie Bird Bakery for a cup of coffee in the morning, or take a little bit of a longer walk to get to Birdie's Cafe, where they have chessboards on their coffee tables. And you can go and just sit down and kind of relax with your friends and study, or play a game of chess or checkers. So those are the kind of things that I really appreciate as far as having the balance between those. But I'm definitely someone who prefers a more urban area when I want to kind of do all sorts of other things and kind of be able to walk to whatever kind of food I want. So those kind of things are somewhat restricting at times, but ultimately there are still things in the community for you to engage with. Tariq, anything that you can add on that one? Any other different things that you're not too happy about, or what's that look like for you?
Well, I'm definitely with Zach as far as the area. I grew up in the city. I'm a city boy at heart. So going to Westminster and driving through cornfields, I said, I'm not sure about this. But it was also, I'm 2 hours away from DC. Baltimore is 45 minutes. So it's also, if I was sick of the cornfields, I could go off campus and enjoy those experiences as well. Um, I'll say this: if there aren't really, I think that was the major thing for me, was just the location. What's really cool about McDaniel is if you don't like something, speak up and say it. And I think a lot of changes have been made that way at McDaniel, because students are like, we need to increase diversity. We don't always like the food here, so now students are very vocal. They're very honest about their opinions, and professors, faculty, and staff answer and listen to students. And that's how we got 8 new majors like American Sign Language and engineering, because students wanted that. And even if it didn't happen within my time in McDaniel, knowing that they were committed to that change, that they listened, and now coming back to campus after 2 years of not being there, I go and I was like, this is an improved version of McDaniel. So if there is something that you don't like at McDaniel, there are ways to enhance or to better your experience. Just speak up. And I love that about McDaniel.
Yeah, awesome. So I have a specific question here about the theater program, actually. So Tariq, I'm going to throw this one over to you, because while I was in the theater program, I think you spent much more time there than I did. So could you tell us just a little bit more about what the theater program looks like?
Yeah.
And then can you do theater without being a major? And how does that look? How does that work as far as what the theater community is like here at McDaniel?
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful thing about the McDaniel plan or the liberal arts education, you can do just about anything without being a major in it. So I have friends that weren't theater majors that were leads in shows. So you don't have to be a theater major. I will admit I was very apprehensive about theater going to McDaniel, because there were the NYUs and the Juilliards out there, and I was like, well, is my experience gonna be good, or how good can theater be in Westminster, Maryland? First class. Everything just sort of changed for me. The professors are really, really dedicated and committed to their craft, and you get that. It's exuding and through the professors in your classes and in your instruction. There are people that never took theater classes and took a theater class and fell in love and found the appreciation for it. So the theater program, as Zach mentioned, there are 4 productions every year, but that aren't just for productions. Sometimes there are student directed shows. There are I remember my junior year, we devised a show on our own, and it went up in the main season. So it's really collaborative with your professor as far as the theater program. And then we have a theater professor who owns her own theater company, so they're experts in that field as well. There also is, Zach mentioned, January term. I went to KCACTF, which is through the Kennedy Center, and it's in different colleges every year, but you get to connect with other students in your region from all over the region, which is really cool. Go and learn from other professors, audition for a summer program. I actually got an apprenticeship through KCACTF, and I was in Boston for a summer. So it's really nice to know that you have that option. But as far as the structure of the theater program, it's a really, really strong one, because it's not just, going to do a monologue. We're going to teach you movement. We're going to teach you how to use your voice. We're going to teach you how to do a monologue and how to do dialogue and things like that. So it's really, really cool to just be a part of that.
Cool. And then a more generalized question about some academics. I see here, what are some of the most popular academic programs and what do those look like across campus? So I'll handle that question. So basically, some of the most popular programs are going to include things like kinesiology. A lot of students in the kinesiology field will be training to be either athletic trainers or occupational therapists. We actually have a really cool research lab for kinesiology where they even have some really cool like Star Trek level equipment. Me as the kind of literature nerd, there's this table that is a computer screen essentially, and it shows anatomy and you can go into the different layers and things like that. They have a brand new bod pod, which is like this alien looking thing that you get in and it takes vital signs and all of that stuff. So the kinesiology program is fairly popular. Beyond that though, we also have things, psychology is always a popular option on campus. Social work is also very popular. Business administration and the related fields around business. So there are 4 majors within that program. We have a business administration, an economics, an accounting, and a marketing major, each of those 4 distinct groups. And so those are all definitely popular options for students looking to pursue a variety of different avenues. We have actually an innovation challenge every year where the winner is, just a student who basically it is kind of a think tank or a Shark Tank style competition. And then the winner actually wins $10,000 in startup costs for their small business. So it's really, really cool and innovative. And so you have those kind of pieces that tie into that business major, which make it particularly popular for those entrepreneurs out there. And then one of our other more popular programs, though not necessarily the major, is education. We're very well known in the area, especially here in Maryland, for a really great education program. And really, it's probably difficult to find a single school in Maryland that doesn't have a McDaniel alum in it somewhere, either from our undergraduate program or indeed our graduate program. We have about 20 different graduate programs here at McDaniel, a couple more than that, in fact, but a few of them are education related or education based. So there's a lot of infrastructure within that program, but on the secondary level, as far as teaching high school, if you're doing secondary education, you actually minor in education and then major in your subject area that you're looking to study. So if you're looking to teach English to 9th graders, then you would English major and secondary ed minor. Or we have a really, really robust elementary education major available for our students that you can do if you're looking to do the elementary level. So lots of cool things happening there. Beyond that, we also have, it's not quite popular yet, but a brand new program we have is actually a dual degree program in engineering with the Washington School of Engineering or McKelvey School of Engineering out of the Washington University in St. Louis. And it's a multitude of different options. So I won't get into the details, but if you're interested in engineering, essentially what you need to know is that you can do your undergraduate career with us here at McDaniel and get the liberal arts experience, and then go directly into a master's program at the School of Engineering and get a master's degree in an engineering field in a Master of Science. And you'll also have other options to pursue that can also get you a Bachelor of Science and a Master of Science, and the list goes on. And again, it's pretty complicated, but reach out if you have any questions. And that is a really cool growing major here, growing opportunity here on campus. But those are some of the hard hitters as far as popularity goes across the board. And I do know we are approaching our kind of final time here. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you again for joining us. We're really thrilled that you want to learn more about McDaniel College, and please do reach out to us. I hope that you have been given our emails and things at some point. My email, if you do have questions for me directly, is zbrown, Z as in zebra, brown like the color, @mcdaniel.edu. So zbrown@mcdaniel.edu. You're welcome to email me there. But really just thank you, and thanks for joining us tonight. Tariq, any final words from you?
Yeah, thanks. This was fun. And my email address is going to be tevans, that's T as in Thomas, evans@mcdaniel.edu. So if you have any questions for me or just want to chat and whatever, just, message me and I'll be glad to get back to you.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, first off, amazing timing. Second off, thank you too for having some of the easiest email addresses I have ever heard. And with that, if you guys are ready, I can go ahead and officially wrap us up tonight. with
right.
a very big thank you, of course, presenters for joining us, and thank you students for tuning in as well. So when you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey, and we do appreciate any feedback that you can provide. As I said at the start, this is one of our many sessions being hosted. We would love to see you back for any additional sessions. Please feel free to sign up at pacac.org, which is PACAC.org. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording, as well as all of our other session recordings, same website, PACAC.org. Thank you so much, and I hope all of you have a great night.